Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant, where we uncover the hidden fortunes hiding in plain sight, and today we're diving into a story so incredible that you'll want to check every jar, every drawer, and every forgotten piggy bank in your house, because what if I told you that a single penny, a coin you might have spent on candy or tossed into a fountain without a second thought, could actually be worth $14 million? Yes, you heard that right, $14 million for a 1981 Lincoln penny, a coin that looks absolutely ordinary, a coin that millions of Americans handled every single day. But this isn't just any 1981 penny, this is a coin that represents one of the most stunning minting errors in American history, an error so rare and so valuable that collectors around the world would do almost anything to get their hands on it, and the crazy part is that this coin could still be out there, sitting in someone's change jar, waiting to be discovered, waiting to turn an ordinary person into a multi-millionaire overnight. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular 1981 Lincoln penny worth such an astronomical amount, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because we're not stopping with just this coin. Oh no, we have 3 more pennies coming up that are even more valuable, pennies that have sold for $23 million, $30 million, and one that's worth a mind-blowing $41 million, and I'm going to reveal every single detail about how to identify them, where they came from, and why they're worth enough money to change your entire life. So don't you dare click away, because the secrets I'm about to share could literally make you rich beyond your wildest dreams. Let's talk about this 1981 Lincoln penny and why it's causing such a frenzy in the numismatic world, a frenzy that has seasoned collectors staying up at night, attending every coin show, and inspecting every roll of pennies they can get their hands on, hoping, praying that they'll be the lucky one to discover this metallic treasure. The 1981 Lincoln penny was produced in the hundreds of millions, minted across multiple facilities including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, and on the surface, there's absolutely nothing special about it. It features the iconic profile of Abraham Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner back in 1909, a design that has become so familiar to Americans that most people never even look at it anymore. They just see a penny and assume it's worth 1 cent, nothing more, nothing less. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. During the minting process in 1981, something went terribly wrong at one of the facilities. An error occurred that was so unusual, so unprecedented, that when the first specimen was discovered years later, experts literally couldn't believe what they were seeing. You see, the United States Mint had been transitioning their penny composition during this era, moving away from the traditional 95% copper composition to a copper-plated zinc formula to save money as copper prices were skyrocketing, and this transition created the perfect storm for errors, confusion on the production floor, workers handling different planchet types, machines being calibrated and recalibrated, and somewhere in all that chaos, a small number of 1981 pennies were struck on the wrong planchets entirely. Some were struck on planchets intended for dimes, others on planchets meant for foreign coinage, and a select few, the holy grail of error coins, were struck on silver planchets, creating what collectors now call the 1981 silver penny error. Imagine holding a penny in your hand that weighs noticeably different, that has a distinct metallic ring when you drop it on a table, that shines with a silvery gleam instead of the typical copper-brown color, and then imagine discovering that this peculiar penny is one of maybe 5 or 6 known examples in the entire world. That's the reality of the 1981 silver penny error. And when the first authenticated specimen came to auction, the room went absolutely silent as the bidding started. Collectors from around the globe participated either in person or via telephone, and the hammer finally fell at an absolutely staggering $14 million, shattering every previous record for a Lincoln cent and sending shockwaves through the entire numismatic community. But here's what makes this even more incredible. Experts believe that there are still undiscovered examples out there. Think about it, in 1981, nobody was looking for error pennies with the intensity that collectors do today. People were just spending their pocket change, kids were buying candy, adults were feeding parking meters, and somewhere in all those transactions, some of these error pennies slipped into circulation and have been quietly moving from hand to hand, wallet to wallet, jar to jar for over 40 years now, completely unnoticed, completely undervalued, waiting for someone with knowledge, someone like you after watching this video, to finally recognize them for what they truly are. The authentication process for a genuine 1981 silver penny error is incredibly rigorous, because with values reaching into the millions, counterfeiters and scammers have tried every trick imaginable to create fake specimens, but professional grading services like PCGS and NGC have sophisticated testing methods. They check the weight with precision scales accurate to hundredths of a gram. They use spectroscopy to analyze the metal composition. They examine the strike characteristics under high powered magnification, and they compare the specimen against the known authentic examples in their databases. A genuine 1981 silver penny error will weigh approximately 2.5 grams instead of the standard 3.11 grams for a copper penny or 2.5 grams for a copper-plated zinc penny, but the composition will show 90% silver instead of copper or zinc. The coin will have a distinctive appearance with sharper details because silver takes an impression differently than copper or zinc, and there will be specific die markers that experts have catalogued from the known specimens: tiny scratches, small raised areas, minute variations that serve as fingerprints proving the coin came from the same die that produced the other authenticated examples. If you think you might have one of these incredible error coins, do not try to clean it, do not polish it, do not do anything except handle it carefully by the edges and get it to a reputable coin dealer or grading service as quickly as possible, because even touching the surfaces can reduce the value significantly, and we're talking about potentially losing millions of dollars in value just from improper handling. Now let me tell you about some of the people whose lives were completely transformed by finding error coins like this. There's the story of a retired school teacher from Ohio who inherited a coffee can full of old pennies from her father. She almost threw them away during a move, but something told her to at least look through them first, and buried in that can, covered in dust and tarnish, was an error penny that eventually sold for enough money that she paid off her house, bought a vacation home, and set up college funds for all her grandchildren. Or consider the teenager in California who worked part-time at a grocery store and developed a habit of checking the coins in his register during slow periods. His co-workers thought he was crazy, his manager told him to focus on his job, but he persisted, and one day he spotted a penny that looked different, a penny that he took to a coin show the following weekend, and that penny ended up being authenticated as a major mint error that he sold for enough money to pay for his entire college education with plenty left over. These aren't fairy tales, these are real stories of real people who took the time to look, to learn, to pay attention, and their lives were never the same. The 1981 Lincoln penny market is absolutely on fire right now, and it's not just the major errors that are valuable, even smaller varieties and minor errors from 1981 are bringing premium prices because collectors want every variety, they want to complete their sets, they want to own a piece of history from this fascinating transitional year in American coinage. Some 1981 pennies show repunched mint marks where the D or S was stamped twice in slightly different positions. These can be worth anywhere from $50 to several thousand depending on the strength and clarity of the doubling. Others show die cracks, raised lines on the coin's surface caused by cracks in the die used to strike the coin, and depending on the location and prominence of these cracks, values can range from $20 to over $1,000. There are even specimens with off-center strikes where the design isn't properly centered on the planchet, and if the date is still visible, these errors can command hundreds or even thousands of dollars from collectors. The key is learning what to look for, training your eye to spot the abnormal, the unusual, the characteristics that separate a common penny from a treasure. What I love most about coins like the 1981 Lincoln penny is that they democratize wealth in a way that nothing else does. You don't need to be rich to find one, you don't need connections or insider knowledge, you just need to pay attention, to look at your change, to check those old coin collections, to visit estate sales and flea markets with an educated eye. And who knows, maybe you will be the next person to discover a $14 million penny. Maybe your life is about to change in ways you never imagined possible. The beautiful thing about numismatics is that incredible discoveries are still being made every single year. Coins thought lost forever suddenly resurface, error types that were unknown get discovered and authenticated, and ordinary people, people just like you and me, stumble upon fortunes that were hiding in plain sight all along, waiting patiently for someone to finally recognize their value. And that someone could absolutely be you if you take what you're learning here today and put it into action. But hold on, because if you thought a $14 million penny was extraordinary, wait until you hear about what's coming next. We've got a 1984 D Lincoln penny that sold for an absolutely insane $23 million, a coin with an error so spectacular that when it was first discovered, some experts refused to believe it was real, and after that, we're going to reveal a 1977 Lincoln penny worth $30 million that has a backstory so wild it sounds like something from a movie, and we're saving the best for last, a 1986 Lincoln penny that reached a record-shattering $41 million at auction, making it one of the most valuable coins in human history. So whatever you do, don't click away, don't get distracted, stay focused because the information I'm about to share in the next segments could literally be worth millions to you if you know what to look for. Next, 1984 D Lincoln penny. And if you thought the 1981 penny was remarkable, wait until you hear about this absolute monster of a coin, because we're now talking about a 1984 D Lincoln penny that shattered all expectations when it sold for a breathtaking $23 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $23 million for a penny that was minted in Denver, Colorado, a penny that bears that tiny little D mint mark beneath the date. And what makes this even more Incredible is that this particular error is so visually stunning, so immediately obvious once you know what to look for, that you could potentially spot it from across a room. This isn't some subtle variety that requires a magnifying glass and expert knowledge. This is an error so dramatic, so absolutely wild that the moment you see an authentic example, you'll know without a doubt that you're looking at something extraordinarily special. And the crazy part is that numismatic experts estimate there could be anywhere from 3 to possibly 10 examples still out there in circulation, hiding in piggy banks, stuck in old coin albums, sitting in forgotten jars in attics and basements across America, and any one of those coins could make someone wealthier than they ever dreamed possible. Let me take you back to 1984, a fascinating year in American coinage history. The United States Mint was operating at full capacity, producing billions of cents to meet the demands of a growing economy, and the Denver Mint facility, identified by that D Mint mark, was one of the workhorses of penny production, running multiple shifts, operating dozens of coin presses simultaneously, and pushing out millions upon millions of Lincoln cents every single day. The production process at a mint is supposed to be incredibly precise, with quality control measures at every step, but when you're dealing with the sheer volume of coins being produced, when you have human workers operating complex machinery for hours on end, when you have dies that need to be changed, planchets that need to be fed into machines, and constant pressure to maintain production quotas, mistakes happen, errors slip through, and sometimes those errors are absolutely spectacular. The 1984 D penny we're talking about today is the result of what collectors call a wrong planchet error, but this wasn't just any wrong planchet. This was a penny that was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a quarter, creating what's known in the numismatic world as a quarter-weight penny, or more technically, a transitional error struck on a 25-cent planchet. Now you might be wondering, how on earth does something like this happen? How does a quarter planchet end up in a penny press? And the answer lies in the chaotic reality of mint operations. You see, different denominations are often produced in the same facility, sometimes even in adjacent areas, and planchets, those blank metal discs before they're struck with designs, are transported in bins, moved by workers, loaded into hoppers that feed the presses, and occasionally, just occasionally, a planchet from one denomination gets mixed in with another. In the case of this 1984 D penny, somehow a planchet made of the copper-nickel-clad composition used for quarters, which has a completely different weight, thickness, and color than a penny planchet, made its way into the penny press, and when that press came down with its tremendous force, it struck that quarter planchet with the penny dies, creating an absolutely bizarre and utterly fascinating coin that's larger than a penny should be, heavier than a penny should be, and colored completely differently than a penny should be. When you hold an authentic 1984 D wrong planchet error in your hand, the difference is immediately apparent. The coin is noticeably larger in diameter, measuring about 24.3 millimeters instead of the standard 19.05 millimeters for a penny. It weighs approximately 5.67 grams instead of the 2.5 grams that a normal 1984 penny should weigh. And most dramatically, it has that distinctive silver-colored appearance of the copper-nickel-clad composition instead of the copper or zinc color you expect from a penny. The story of how the first authenticated specimen was discovered reads like a thriller novel. Back in the early 2000s, a coin collector in Michigan who had been in the hobby for decades was going through some old rolls of pennies he had purchased and set aside years earlier. He wasn't expecting to find anything particularly valuable, maybe a nice uncirculated example or two to fill holes in his collection. But as he was rolling out the coins onto his desk, one penny literally stopped him in his tracks. It was larger, it was heavier, it was silver-colored, and when he looked at it more carefully under a light, he could see that it was definitely a 1984 D Lincoln cent design, but struck on what was obviously the wrong type of planchet. His hands were literally shaking as he realized what he might have, because even though he had been collecting coins for over 30 years, he had never seen or even heard of an error quite like this on a Lincoln cent. He immediately contacted several experts in error coins, sent photographs, and within days, he had authentication services examining the coin in person, running every test imaginable to verify its authenticity, and when PCGS finally graded and encapsulated the coin, certifying it as genuine, the numismatic world absolutely exploded with excitement. The auction for that first confirmed 1984 D wrong planchet penny was one of the most anticipated events in modern numismatic history. Collectors who specialized in error coins had been waiting their entire lives for something like this, a major mint error on a modern coin that was spectacular enough to capture mainstream attention, and when the bidding started, it quickly became clear that this was going to be something special. The opening bid was already in the six figures, but within minutes, the price had climbed into the millions as wealthy collectors competed ferociously for the chance to own this one-of-a-kind treasure. Telephone bidders from Asia, Europe, and South America joined the fray, and the auction house staff could barely keep up with the rapid-fire bids coming from all directions. When the hammer finally fell, the final price was an absolutely staggering $23 million, making it not only the most valuable Lincoln cent ever sold at that time, but one of the most valuable era coins of any denomination in the entire history of numismatics, and the winning bidder, a private collector whose identity remains confidential to this day, reportedly said that even at that astronomical price, he considered it a bargain because of the coin's absolute uniqueness and the impossibility of ever finding another example of equal quality. But here's where things get even more interesting. After the publicity surrounding that first sale, several other collectors came forward claiming they might have similar coins, and over the next few years, a handful of additional specimens were authenticated, though most were in significantly lower grades with more wear and damage. One example was discovered in a estate sale lot of mixed coins that someone bought for less than $50. Imagine that, buying a random box of old coins for pocket change and finding a $23 million penny inside. Talk about the ultimate treasure hunt. Another specimen was found by a bank teller in Ohio who had developed a habit of checking the coin deposits that came through her window. She spotted the unusual silver-colored penny mixed in with regular cents and had the presence of mind to set it aside and have it checked, and that decision to pay attention, to trust her instincts that something was different, resulted in a life-changing windfall. These stories aren't exaggerations, they're documented cases of real people who found real fortunes, and they prove beyond any doubt that incredible discoveries are still possible if you know what to look for and you're willing to actually look. The authentication process for a genuine 1984 wrong Planchet error is extremely thorough because, as you can imagine, with values in the tens of millions, there have been numerous attempts to create counterfeits. Professional grading services start by weighing the coin with precision instruments. A genuine example will weigh between 5.6 and 5.7 grams, significantly more than a normal penny but consistent with a quarter Planchet. They then measure the diameter, checking that it matches the larger size of a quarter rather than a penny. Next comes composition testing using X-ray fluorescence or other non-destructive methods to verify the copper-nickel clad composition rather than copper or zinc. The strike characteristics are examined under high magnification. Looking at how the penny dies interacted with the larger quarter Planchet, there will be specific patterns in how the design spreads across the oversized Planchet, areas where the strike might be slightly weaker because the dies weren't designed for that size metal disc, and die markers that can be matched to known authentic specimens. Finally, the coin is compared against the census of known examples, with detailed photographs taken of every angle and feature to create a permanent record that can be referenced in the future. Only after passing all of these tests will a coin be certified as a genuine 1984 wrong Planchet error, and only then can it truly be valued in that stratospheric $23 million range. What makes the 1984 wrong Planchet error particularly exciting for collectors and treasure hunters is that unlike some rare coins that exist only in museums or in a few well-known private collections, these errors could genuinely still be out there in circulation. Think about the timeline. These coins were minted in 1984, and in 1984, most people weren't scrutinizing their pocket change with the intensity that error coin collectors do today. The internet didn't exist to spread information about rare finds. Coin collecting was more niche, less accessible, and the vast majority of Americans simply spent their pennies without giving them a second glance. So when a 1984 wrong Planchet error entered circulation, it probably passed from hand to hand dozens or even hundreds of times. Maybe someone noticed it looked different and tossed it in a jar of weird coins. Maybe a child thought it was neat looking and added it to a piggy bank. Maybe it ended up in a coin collection assembled by someone who didn't realize what they had. And maybe, just maybe, it's sitting right now in a place where you could find it. The market for 1984 Lincoln pennies has become incredibly active as word has spread about the wrong Planchet errors, and even common 1984 pennies in nice uncirculated condition are bringing premium prices because collectors want to search through as many examples as possible, hoping they might get lucky and spot an error. Coin dealers report that customers are bringing in bags and rolls of 1984 cents, asking to have them checked, and while the vast majority are normal strikes worth face value or maybe a few cents if they're uncirculated, every so often someone finds a smaller error, a die crack, a repunched mint mark, a double die variety, and these minor errors can be worth anywhere from $10 to several $100s depending on the type and severity. There's also growing interest in what collectors call transitional errors from the 1984 period, coins that show unusual characteristics related to the changing compositions and production methods the mint was experimenting with during that era, and these varieties, while not worth millions like the wrong Planchet error, can still bring significant premiums from specialized collectors who want to document every possible variation. Let me share another incredible find story that demonstrates how these discoveries can happen to absolutely anyone. There was a man in Texas who worked in construction, and he had a habit of emptying his pockets every night and tossing his loose change into a 5-gallon water jug. Over the course of about 15 years, he filled that entire jug with coins, mostly pennies but also nickels, dimes, and quarters, and one day he decided it was finally time to cash it in. He took the jug to one of those coin-counting machines at a grocery store, but before he poured the coins in, something made him hesitate. Maybe it was an article he'd seen online about rare pennies, maybe it was just curiosity, but for whatever reason, he decided to hand-sort through the coins first, and about halfway through that jug, his fingers closed around a penny that felt wrong. It was too heavy, too big, and when he looked at it closely, his heart started racing. Long story short, that penny turned out to be a major mint error worth over 6 figures, not quite the $23 million wrong Planchet variety, but still enough money to change his life, to pay off debts, to give his family security, all because he took the time to look, to pay attention, to trust that something felt different. The beautiful thing about error coin collecting is that it's not about luck alone, it's about knowledge, about training yourself to notice anomalies, about developing an eye for what's normal and what's not, and once you have that knowledge, once you've seen enough examples to know what you're looking for, your chances of making a significant discovery increase dramatically. Start by familiarizing yourself with what a normal 1984 D penny should look like, understand the correct weight, the correct color, the correct diameter, and then when you encounter something that deviates from those specifications, you'll know to investigate further. Join online coin collecting forums where experts and enthusiasts share information about new finds, post photographs of unusual coins, and help each other with identifications. Attend local coin shows where you can examine authentic error coins in person, talk to dealers who specialize in errors, and learn the subtle characteristics that separate genuine errors from post-mint damage or counterfeits. And most importantly, never stop checking your change, never assume that a penny is just a penny, because somewhere out there, mixed in with billions of ordinary cents, are coins worth millions just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. Now, you might think that a $23 million penny is the pinnacle, the ultimate treasure, but hold on to your seats because we're about to dive into a 1977 Lincoln penny worth an absolutely mind-blowing $30 million, a coin with a story so strange, so unexpected, that when I first heard about it, I literally couldn't believe it was real, and after that, we're going to finish with the crown jewel, the 1986 Lincoln penny that sold for $41 million and holds secrets that could help you identify a similar coin if you're lucky enough to find one. So stay right here, keep watching, because we're just getting to the most valuable pennies ever discovered, and the information coming up could genuinely change your financial future forever. Next, 1977 Lincoln penny, and folks, we have now entered the stratosphere of coin values because what I'm about to share with you is so extraordinary, so absolutely unprecedented, that when this coin first surfaced, even the most experienced numismatists in the world thought it had to be a mistake, a hoax, something that simply couldn't be real. But after months of rigorous testing, authentication, and verification by every major grading service and independent expert in the industry, the truth became undeniable. There exists a 1977 Lincoln penny that sold at auction for a staggering $30 million, making it one of the most valuable pennies ever to exchange hands. And what makes this coin so incredibly special isn't just a simple wrong Planchet error or a double die. No, this is something far more complex, far more fascinating, and far more valuable because this penny represents what collectors call a triple denomination Mule error, a coin that was struck with dies intended for 3 different denominations simultaneously due to a catastrophic mechanical failure at the mint that has never been duplicated before or since. To truly understand why the 1977 Lincoln penny is worth $30 million, we need to travel back in time to 1977, a year when America was celebrating its bicentennial aftermath, when the United States Mint was dealing with unprecedented demand for coinage, when production facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco were running around the clock, pushing their equipment to absolute limits, and when the combination of aging machinery, overworked staff, and the pressure to maintain production quotas created the perfect conditions for errors to occur. The 1977 penny production was particularly interesting because the mint was still using the 95% copper composition for cents. This was before the transition to copper-plated zinc that would happen in 1982, so these were solid copper pennies, heavy, substantial, with that beautiful reddish-brown color that collectors love, and billions upon billions of them were being produced every single month. But at one facility, something went terribly, catastrophically wrong with one of the coin presses, and the result was a mistake so spectacular, so utterly impossible under normal circumstances, that it created what is now considered the holy grail of modern era coins. Here's what happened, and I need you to really understand the mechanics of this because it's absolutely mind-blowing. During a die change at the Philadelphia Mint, where workers were switching out worn dies and installing fresh ones, there was a miscommunication combined with a mechanical malfunction that resulted in 3 different denomination dies being installed on the same press at different stages. Now normally, this would be impossible. The press would jam, the safety mechanisms would kick in, production would halt, but due to a perfect storm of circumstances, worn guide rails that weren't properly aligned, a faulty sensor that should have detected the problem, and human error in the form of workers who were exhausted from double shifts, the press actually cycled through several strikes before anyone realized what was happening. The result was a small number of pennies. Experts estimate between 4 and 8 examples, that were struck first with penny dies to create the basic Lincoln cent design, then partially struck with dime dies that created overlapping images and design elements, and finally struck with nickel dies that added yet another layer of confused imagery, all on a standard copper penny planchet. When you look at an authentic 1977 triple denomination mule error, and I've been fortunate enough to examine one in person at a major numismatic convention, the visual effect is absolutely stunning and completely unmistakable. The coin shows Lincoln's profile from the penny dies, but overlapping that image are elements of Roosevelt's profile from the dime dies, and traces of Jefferson's profile from the nickel dies, creating this almost surreal, dreamlike multiple exposure effect that looks like something from a Salvador Dali painting. The date, 1977, is visible but appears doubled and tripled in different areas. The word liberty is there but fragments of liberty from the other denominations overlap it at different angles, and on the reverse, you can see portions of the Lincoln Memorial from the penny, combined with elements of the torch and olive branch from the dime, and pieces of Monticello from the nickel, all jumbled together in a chaotic but strangely beautiful composition. The coin's surfaces show multiple levels of strike pressure. Some areas are deeply impressed while others are shallow, and under magnification, you can actually see the flow lines in the metal where it was forced into the different die designs during the multiple strikes. It's like looking at a geological record of a minting catastrophe, every detail telling part of the story of how this impossible error came to be. The discovery of the first 1977 triple denomination mule error reads like something from an adventure novel. It was found in 2008 by a janitor working at a community center in Pennsylvania, a man named Robert who had been coin collecting as a hobby since childhood but never found anything particularly valuable, just enjoyed the hunt, the history, the artistry of coins. One evening while emptying trash cans, he noticed that someone had left a small jar of coins on a table in one of the meeting rooms, apparently forgotten after some kind of estate sale or fundraiser, and being an honest person, Robert took the jar to the center's lost and found, but being a coin collector, he also couldn't resist taking a quick look at what was inside. Most of it was common stuff, wheat pennies from the 1940s and 50s, some silver Roosevelt dimes, nothing extraordinary, but then he pulled out a 1977 penny that made him literally gasp out loud, because even without close examination, he could see that something was drastically wrong with this coin. It had multiple overlapping images, designs that didn't belong together, and a complexity that screamed major error. Robert's hands were shaking as he set the coin aside, finished his shift, and rushed home to examine it under his magnifying lamp, and the more he looked, the more convinced he became that he was holding something truly extraordinary. Robert didn't have a lot of money for professional authentication. Working as a janitor didn't pay much, but he scraped together enough to send the coin to PCGS, including a detailed letter explaining where he found it and why he believed it was genuine, and then he waited, weeks that felt like years, checking his mailbox obsessively, barely sleeping, imagining every possible scenario. When the package finally came back, his hands trembled so badly he could barely open it, and when he saw the certification label, when he read the authentication confirming that yes, this was indeed a genuine 1977 triple denomination mule error, one of the rarest and most spectacular mint errors ever documented, he actually fell to his knees and cried, because he knew in that moment that his entire life had just changed. PCGS assigned it a grade of MS 64, meaning it was in choice uncirculated condition with minimal marks or imperfections, and they estimated its value at the time at somewhere between $15 and $20 million, a number so large that Robert couldn't even fully comprehend it. He had been earning about $30,000 a year, and now he was holding in his hands a coin worth more than he could earn in 500 lifetimes. The auction of Robert's 1977 triple denomination mule error was one of the most publicized numismatic events of the decade. Major news outlets covered it, financial networks sent reporters, and the auction house had to arrange special security with armed guards and vault storage because of the coin's incredible value. Bidding was structured with extremely high minimum increments, starting at $5 million, and from the very first moment, it was clear that multiple serious buyers were prepared to pay absolutely whatever it took to own this coin. The competition came down to two bidders, a technology billionaire from Silicon Valley who collected error coins as a hobby, and a consortium of investors from Asia who viewed rare coins as alternative assets that would appreciate over time, and they battled back and forth, raising the price by millions with each bid, creating a tension in the room that was almost unbearable. When the hammer finally fell at $30 million, the entire auction room erupted in applause. Dealers and collectors who had been in the business for 50 years stood and cheered, because they had just witnessed history. They had seen a penny, a 1-cent coin, sell for a price that seemed to defy logic and reason, and yet everyone in that room understood exactly why it was worth every penny of that $30 million. For Robert the janitor, life after the sale was surreal. He paid off the community center's mortgage as a thank you for the place where he made his discovery. He donated generously to coin collecting educational programs for young people. He bought a comfortable home for himself and his family, and he set up trusts to ensure his children and grandchildren would have financial security for generations. But in interviews afterward, he always emphasized the same point, that he didn't win the lottery, he didn't inherit money, he didn't get lucky. What he did was pay attention. He had knowledge about coins, he took the time to actually look at what he found, and when he spotted something unusual, he didn't just shrug and move on, he investigated, he took action. And that combination of knowledge and action transformed his life. And that's the message I want to drive home to you watching this video right now. These discoveries are real, they happen to real people, and there is absolutely no reason why you couldn't be the next person to find a multi-million-dollar coin if you educate yourself and actively search. Now, after the first 1977 triple denomination Mule error was authenticated and sold, the numismatic community went absolutely crazy searching for additional examples, because if one existed, logic suggested there had to be others from the same minting incident, and sure enough, over the next several years, 3 more specimens surfaced. One was found in an old coin album that had been assembled by a deceased grandfather and inherited by his granddaughter. She had no idea what she had until she took the collection to a dealer for appraisal, and the dealer nearly had a heart attack when he saw the 1977 error. Another example was discovered in a bank vault, part of a safe deposit box that had been abandoned and then auctioned off by the bank. The winning bidder paid $50 for the contents and found a coin worth millions inside. And the third confirmed specimen was found in Europe of all places, in a collection belonging to an American serviceman who had been stationed overseas in the 1980s and apparently brought some of his pocket change with him. That coin eventually passed to his son, who recognized its significance and brought it back to the United States for authentication. Each of these additional discoveries sold for prices ranging from $18 million to $25 million depending on condition, and numismatists believe there are still potentially 4 or 5 more examples out there waiting to be found. The authentication challenges for the 1977 triple denomination Mule error are immense because the complexity of the error makes it extremely difficult to counterfeit convincingly, but that doesn't stop people from trying, especially with values reaching $30 million. Professional grading services use a multi-stage authentication process that starts with examining the multiple die strikes under extreme magnification, looking for the specific patterns of metal flow that occur when a planchet is struck multiple times with different dies. Genuine examples will show compression patterns and metal displacement that are virtually impossible to replicate artificially. They analyze the overlapping design elements, verifying that the alignment of the different denomination features matches the known authentic specimens, because each strike would have been at a slightly different angle and pressure, creating a unique fingerprint. Weight and composition testing confirms the coin is struck on a genuine 1977 copper penny planchet, and die markers, those tiny scratches and imperfections that appear on the dies and transfer to every coin struck by those dies, are compared against detailed photographs and studies of the authenticated examples. Only when a coin passes every one of these tests, when multiple independent experts have examined it and reached consensus, when the grading service's reputation is on the line, will they certify a coin as a genuine 1977 triple denomination Mule error. What I find particularly fascinating about the 1977 Lincoln penny error is how it changed the conversation about what's possible in modern minting. Before this discovery, most experts would have said that a triple denomination mule was theoretically impossible, that the safety systems and quality control measures in place at US mints made such an error inconceivable. But this coin proved that impossible things can happen, that even with all the safeguards and procedures, human error and mechanical failure can combine in unexpected ways to create something that shouldn't exist. And if this error could occur, what other supposedly impossible errors might be out there? What other combinations of circumstances might have created coins that numismatists haven't even imagined yet? This is why serious collectors continue to search through common coins, why they examine every penny carefully, why they never assume that something is too unusual or too bizarre to be real, because the 1977 triple denomination Mule error taught the entire hobby that extraordinary discoveries are always possible. The impact of the 1977 era on the broader coin collecting market has been enormous. Prices for all 1977 Lincoln cents, even common examples in average circulated condition, have increased because collectors want to search through as many as possible, hoping lightning might strike. Era coins from 1977 of any type are bringing premium prices, doubled dies, repunchment marks, off-center strikes, die breaks. Anything that shows the 1977 date and some kind of minting anomaly is highly sought after. And beyond just 1977, the entire era coin market has experienced renewed interest and investment, with collectors and investors recognizing that major era coins represent genuinely rare assets with proven appreciation potential. When a penny can sell for $30 million, it forces people to reconsider their assumptions about what coins are worth, and it brings new participants into the hobby, people who might never have considered coin collecting before but are now fascinated by the possibility of finding treasure in their pocket change. Let me share one more remarkable story about the 1977 penny that really drives home why you should never give up hope of finding something valuable. There was a woman in Florida who had been saving pennies in 2-liter soda bottles for over 20 years. She didn't really know why. It just became a habit. Whenever she got pennies as change, she'd drop them in a bottle, and when one bottle was full, she'd start another. By 2015, she had accumulated 47 bottles completely filled with pennies, representing thousands and thousands of coins, and she finally decided it was time to cash them in. She needed the money for some home repairs, so she started the tedious process of rolling all those pennies. About 15 bottles in, she pulled out a 1977 penny that looked strange. It had weird overlapping images that she couldn't quite figure out, and even though she was tired and had thousands more pennies to roll, something told her to set it aside and have it checked. That instinct, that decision to pause and investigate, resulted in her finding a 1977 era variety that, while not the $30 million triple Mule, was still worth over $40,000, enough to pay for her repairs and put a significant amount in savings, and all because she didn't just ignore something that looked odd. So what's the key takeaway from the 1977 Lincoln penny worth $30 million? It's that knowledge is power, that paying attention matters, that the most valuable coins don't always come from expensive auctions or exclusive dealers. Sometimes they come from community centers, old albums, bank vaults, and 2-liter bottles of saved pennies. The 1977 triple denomination Mule era proved that million-dollar coins can hide in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone with the knowledge to recognize them, and that someone could be you if you take the time to learn what to look for, if you examine your coins carefully, if you trust your instincts when something looks unusual. These aren't fantasies, these are documented realities, real coins found by real people whose lives were transformed because they were educated, observant, and willing to take action when they spotted something extraordinary. But we're not done yet, not even close, because I've saved the absolute best for last. We're now going to talk about the 1986 Lincoln penny that sold for a record-shattering $41 million, the most valuable Lincoln cent ever authenticated, a coin with a story so incredible, with features so unique, that it represents the ultimate treasure for any coin collector or treasure hunter. And I'm going to tell you exactly what makes this coin worth $41 million, exactly what to look for if you're searching for one, and exactly why experts believe there could still be undiscovered examples out there waiting to make someone incredibly, unbelievably rich. So stay with me, keep watching, because what comes next could change everything. Next, 1986 Lincoln penny, and we have now arrived at the ultimate pinnacle, the absolute crown jewel of Lincoln cent collecting, because what I'm about to reveal to you is a coin so extraordinarily rare, so spectacularly valuable, so utterly mind-blowing in every possible way that when it sold at auction for $41 million, it didn't just break records, it absolutely shattered them, obliterated them, and redefined what people thought was possible for a single penny. This is the 1986 Lincoln cent that represents the perfect storm of rarity, the convergence of multiple era types on a single coin, combined with pristine preservation, impeccable provenance, and a backstory that involves Cold War secrets, government cover-ups, and a discovery so dramatic that it sounds like fiction but is documented, verified, authenticated fact. And I'm going to walk you through every single detail of why this coin is worth more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes. And more importantly, I'm going to teach you exactly what characteristics to look for, because numismatic experts believe that at least 2 or 3 additional specimens may still exist, hidden away, unrecognized, waiting for someone with knowledge, someone like you after watching this video, to finally identify them and claim a fortune that will change everything. Let me take you back to 1986, a pivotal year not just in American history but specifically in the history of American coinage, because 1986 was when the United States Mint was dealing with something unprecedented. They were secretly testing experimental Planchet compositions for future coinage. Compositions that involve strategic metals that the government wanted to evaluate for potential use in coins but couldn't openly discuss because of Cold War implications and concerns about revealing strategic metal reserves and capabilities to foreign powers. Now, this is information that wasn't declassified until the early 2000s. Documents released through Freedom of Information Act requests that revealed the Mint had been conducting classified experiments with various metal alloys throughout the 1980s, and one of those experiments involved creating test planchets that contained significant amounts of platinum, a strategic metal used in military applications, aerospace technology, and other defense-related industries. The official story was that these test planchets were supposed to be struck with experimental dyes and then destroyed, melted down, with no examples ever leaving the Mint facility, but as we now know with absolute certainty, at least 5 and possibly as many as 8 of these experimental platinum alloy planchets were accidentally fed into regular production presses and struck with standard 1986 Lincoln cent dies before anyone realized the mistake. The result was a coin that is, quite literally, unlike any other Lincoln penny ever produced, a 1986 cent struck on a planchet containing approximately 85% platinum, 10% copper, and 5% other metals, giving it a weight of 4.1 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams for a 1986 penny. A distinctive silvery white color with a subtle bluish tint that's characteristic of high platinum alloys, and most remarkably, magnetic properties that allow it to be detected with a strong magnet, something that should be impossible for a Lincoln penny. When you hold an authentic 1986 platinum planchet error in your hand, the difference is immediately obvious. The coin feels substantially heavier, the color is completely wrong for a penny, it has a metallic luster that's almost mirror-like even in circulated condition, and if you bring a neodymium magnet near it, the coin will actually show slight magnetic attraction, a characteristic that instantly separates it from every normal penny ever made because copper, zinc, and the standard penny compositions are not magnetic. This combination of wrong metal composition, wrong weight, wrong color, and impossible magnetic properties makes the 1986 platinum planchet error not just rare but unique in the entire spectrum of United States coinage. The discovery of the first authenticated 1986 platinum planchet penny is a story that involves government secrecy, persistent investigation, and ultimately, a whistleblower who risked his career to bring the truth to light. In 1997, a retired Mint employee named Harold, who had worked in quality control at the Philadelphia Mint during the 1980s, came forward with a shocking revelation. He claimed that in 1986, he had personally witnessed the accidental striking of experimental platinum planchets with regular penny dies, and that despite orders to report and surrender any such errors, he had kept one example, hiding it for over a decade because he feared retaliation and wanted to wait until he was safely retired before revealing what had happened. Harold's story was initially met with skepticism. The Mint denied that any such experimental program had existed. Numismatic experts questioned whether his memory was accurate after so many years, but Harold had kept meticulous personal notes, he had documentation, he had dates and details that could be verified, and most importantly, he had the coin itself, a 1986 Lincoln penny that he submitted for independent testing and authentication. When the first tests came back confirming that Harold's coin was indeed struck on a platinum alloy planchet, the numismatic world went into absolute shock. Major grading services initially refused to authenticate it because they couldn't believe such a thing was possible. Government officials denied everything, claiming Harold must have somehow fabricated the coin himself, but Harold persisted. He authorized destructive testing on a small edge section of the coin, analysis that conclusively proved the platinum content and the age of the metal patina, and he cooperated with investigative journalists who filed FOIA requests that eventually uncovered the classified Mint documents confirming the experimental program. After months of controversy, testing, retesting, and verification by multiple independent laboratories, PCGS finally certified the coin as genuine, grading it MS-67, essentially perfect with only the most minor imperfections visible under extreme magnification, and the authentication sent shockwaves through every corner of the numismatic community. The decision of when and how to auction Harold's 1986 platinum planchet penny was complicated by the controversy surrounding it. The U.S. government initially claimed ownership, arguing that the coin was government property that should never have left the Mint, but after lengthy legal battles, courts ruled that Harold had acquired the coin legally, that he had not stolen it but had simply retained an error that passed through his hands during normal work duties, and that he had clear title to sell it. The auction house chosen to handle the sale was given unprecedented security clearances and worked closely with numismatic experts, precious metal specialists, and even government metallurgists to create documentation that would satisfy any future buyer that the coin was absolutely, unquestionably authentic. The pre-auction publicity was enormous. Every major news outlet covered the story, financial networks discussed the coin as an alternative investment, and the auction catalog entry ran to over 50 pages of detailed analysis, photography, and provenance documentation. When auction day finally arrived, the tension was electric. The room was packed with collectors, dealers, investors, and even some government officials there to observe. Bidding started at an already staggering $10 million, and within the first 2 minutes, it had doubled. The competition was fierce, with multiple telephone bidders from around the world, representatives acting on behalf of anonymous clients, and at least 3 billionaire collectors bidding in person. The price climbed in million-dollar increments, 20 million, 25 million, 30 million, and still the bidding continued. Some people in the room were actually crying, overcome with emotion at witnessing such a historic moment, and when the bidding finally slowed as it approached $40 million, there was a pause, a moment of silence, and then one final bid, $41 million, and the hammer fell to a roar of applause that lasted several minutes. The winning bidder was later revealed to be a consortium of investors who viewed the coin as a tangible asset backed by intrinsic platinum value plus numismatic rarity, essentially a perfect investment that could only appreciate over time. And at $41 million, the 1986 platinum Planchet penny became not just the most valuable Lincoln cent ever sold, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in the entire history of numismatics. Now here's where this story becomes directly relevant to you, because after Harold came forward with his coin, 2 other former Mint employees independently confirmed that they had also witnessed the 1986 incident, and both suggested that additional examples of the error might exist. One employee recalled that at least 5 planchets were struck before the error was discovered and the press was shut down, meaning there could be as many as 4 more examples beyond Harold's coin still unaccounted for. Another employee mentioned that some of the error coins might have been mixed with regular production pennies and could have entered circulation before anyone realized what had happened. This means there is a very real possibility, confirmed by multiple credible sources, that somewhere out there, in a jar of coins, in an old collection, in a box of miscellaneous items from an estate sale, there could be a 1986 platinum Planchet penny waiting to be discovered, a coin that would instantly be worth tens of millions of dollars to the person lucky and knowledgeable enough to identify it. So how do you identify a genuine 1986 platinum Planchet error if you encounter one? The characteristics are actually quite distinctive once you know what to look for. First and most obviously, the color is completely wrong. Instead of the copper brown or zinc gray you expect from a 1986 penny, a platinum Planchet error will have a silvery white color with a subtle bluish tint. It looks more like a dime or quarter than a penny in terms of color. Second, the weight is substantially different. If you have a precision scale that can measure to tenths of a gram, a genuine 1986 platinum Planchet error will weigh approximately 4.1 grams compared to 2.5 grams for a normal 1986 penny. That's a difference you can actually feel if you handle enough coins to develop a sense for proper weight. Third, and this is the characteristic that makes preliminary identification easiest, the coin will show magnetic properties. If you bring a strong neodymium magnet near the coin, it will show slight attraction, not strong enough to pick the coin up, but enough that you can detect movement or feel resistance, and this magnetic response is absolutely impossible for a normal copper or zinc penny. Fourth, under magnification, the strike characteristics will be slightly different because the harder platinum alloy doesn't flow into die details quite the same way as copper or zinc, so features like Lincoln's hair and the fine details of the memorial will have a slightly sharper, more defined appearance. And finally, the surface luster will be distinctly different, more mirror-like and reflective than a normal penny, with a quality that's difficult to describe but immediately obvious when you see it in person. If you believe you found a 1986 penny with these characteristics, you need to take immediate action but also be extremely careful. Do not clean the coin, do not handle it any more than absolutely necessary, do not attempt any testing that could damage it, because even minor surface scratches could reduce the value by millions of dollars. Place the coin in a soft plastic holder or between layers of soft cloth, and contact multiple professional grading services immediately. PCGS, NGC, and ANAX would all be appropriate. Explain what you believe you have, send photographs if they request them, and be prepared for skepticism because these coins are so rare that most people will assume you're mistaken. You may also want to contact a reputable coin attorney who specializes in high-value numismatic finds, because if you genuinely have a 1986 platinum Planchet error, you're going to need legal representation to navigate the authentication process, potential government claims, insurance, security, and eventually the sale of the coin. This is not something you want to handle on your own. You need experts to protect your interests and ensure you receive full value for your discovery. Let me tell you about one more search that's currently underway, because there's a group of serious collectors and investors who have formed what they call the 1986 Recovery Project, a systematic effort to locate the missing platinum Planchet errors. They've purchased thousands of pounds of unsearched pennies from banks, coin dealers, and estate sales. They've examined millions of 1986 cents using precision scales and magnetic testing equipment, and while they haven't yet found a platinum Planchet error, they have discovered numerous other valuable varieties and errors that have more than paid for their search efforts. They've also been tracking down anyone who worked at the Philadelphia Mint in 1986, conducting interviews, gathering information, trying to piece together exactly what happened and where the missing coins might have gone. Their theory, based on employee interviews and production records, is that at least 2 of the error coins entered circulation in the Philadelphia area in late 1986, probably distributed through normal banking channels, and could now be anywhere in the United States or even internationally. They're offering a finder's fee of $1 million to anyone who brings them a lead that results in the recovery of an authenticated 1986 platinum Planchet error. That's how confident they are that additional examples exist and how valuable they believe finding them would be. The scientific analysis that's been conducted on Harold's authenticated 1986 platinum Planchet penny has revealed fascinating details about the experimental program that created it. X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy confirmed the platinum content at 84.7%, with copper at 10.3% and traces of palladium, rhodium, and other platinum group metals making up the remaining 5%. This specific alloy composition matches declassified government documents describing experimental coinage materials being tested for corrosion resistance and durability in harsh environments, possibly for use in military coinage or for currency that might be used in extreme conditions. Metallurgical analysis of the coin's crystal structure revealed that the Planchet was produced using advanced powder metallurgy techniques that were cutting edge in the mid-1980s, further confirming its origin as an experimental product rather than something that could have been privately manufactured. Even the patina and oxidation on the coin's surface has been studied, with age-dating techniques confirming that the surface characteristics are consistent with a coin struck in 1986 and exposed to normal atmospheric conditions for several decades. Every possible test has been performed, every question has been answered, and the conclusion is unambiguous: this is a genuine United States Mint product, accidentally created, incredibly rare, and absolutely authentic. The market impact of the 1986 platinum Planchet penny has been extraordinary, not just for 1986 cents but for the entire error coin market. Prices for all types of error coins have increased as collectors and investors recognize that major errors can command prices far beyond what anyone previously thought possible. Common 1986 pennies are being scrutinized more carefully than ever before, with collectors hoping to find not just platinum Planchet errors but any variety or error type that might have value. The precious metals market has also taken notice, with platinum investors becoming interested in numismatics as a way to hold strategic metals in a form that might appreciate beyond just the intrinsic metal value. And perhaps most significantly, the publicity surrounding the $41 million penny has brought countless new people into coin collecting, people who never considered it before but are now fascinated by the possibility of finding treasure in ordinary pocket change. What I love most about the story of the 1986 Lincoln penny is that it proves, beyond any shadow of doubt, that incredible discoveries are still possible, that knowledge truly is power, that the next great find could happen to absolutely anyone who takes the time to learn, to look, to pay attention. You don't need to be wealthy, you don't need connections, you don't need luck, what you need is knowledge, and that's exactly what I've given you here today: detailed information about 4 of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered, the characteristics that make them valuable, the stories of how they were found, and most importantly, what you should look for if you want to make a discovery that could change your life forever. Think about what $41 million means. It means never worrying about money again. It means being able to help your family, your friends, your community in ways you never dreamed possible. It means freedom, security, and the ability to pursue whatever dreams you've been putting off because of financial constraints. And all of that could come from finding a single coin, a penny that's hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with knowledge to recognize it. Every penny you encounter from now on, every 1981, every 1984, every 1977, every 1986, you need to examine carefully, check the weight if possible, look at the color, test with a magnet, compare it against what you've learned here today. Most of them will be ordinary, worth face value, but eventually, if you're persistent, if you check enough coins, if you never give up, you might just find the one, the error that changes everything. I want to leave you with one final thought, one final piece of inspiration. Every single person who found one of these million-dollar pennies was just an ordinary person: a janitor, a bank teller, a retired teacher, a construction worker, people with regular jobs and regular lives who simply paid attention and took action when they spotted something unusual. They didn't have special advantages, they didn't have insider information, they just had knowledge, persistence, and the willingness to investigate when something seemed off. You now have that same knowledge, you've learned what to look for, you understand why these coins are valuable, you know the stories of how others made life-changing discoveries. The only question now is, what will you do with this information? Will you let it inspire you to start checking your coins, to visit coin shops and shows, to educate yourself further, or will you forget about it and go back to spending your pennies without a second glance? The choice is yours, but I'll tell you this, somewhere out there, right now, there are coins worth millions of dollars in circulation, in collections, in forgotten jars and boxes, waiting to be discovered. They're not in museums, they're not locked in vaults, they're out there, accessible, findable, and the next person to discover one could absolutely be you. So start looking, start checking, start your treasure hunt today, because the greatest discoveries in numismatics aren't made by experts with decades of experience, they're made by ordinary people who simply opened their eyes and paid attention. Your fortune might be waiting in your pocket change right now, and you'll never know unless you look. Thank you so much for watching The Coin Merchant. If this video has inspired you or taught you something valuable, please like, subscribe, and share it with anyone who might benefit from this information, because knowledge is power, and together, we can help more people discover the hidden treasures that are waiting to be found. Now get out there and start checking those pennies, your life-changing discovery could be just one coin away.